I asked Dan if he'd ever done a sculpture of his son and if he would consider coming here. He's going to be presenting a session later on in the conference as well. But I wanted you to get a slightly different perspective of things, because he's going to talk about autism and his life with his son, and he's going to show you a little bit about what we experienced when we saw him make Charles Darwin very real out of clay.
Right. What I'm going to be presenting today is a part of, follows pretty much a family tradition. My father and my grandfather often gave these sorts of sculpture demonstration lectures. In fact, my grandfather was especially well known for his demonstration lectures on Abraham Lincoln, which was one of his specialties. And in a sense, I've been following that family tradition by giving lectures around the country. Interestingly, most of them on Abraham Lincoln and Charles Darwin, who, as it so happens, were born on the same day, February 12th of 1809, and so both of them had their 200th birthday this past year, which explains the great interest we've had in them. Well, if we look at works of art, especially portraiture, it's usually done of people who are well known and famous, and or who are wealthy, or who have made some remarkable contribution to society. Unfortunately, those who suffer from disabilities are often not only do they not receive the services that they need, but they're oftentimes not recognized perhaps as we should. And so today what I would like to do is take a few moments, and in fact normally these lectures take about an hour. I'm going to try to do it in record time and see if we can complete this in 18 minutes. But what I'd like to do today is take a few moments to honor the person who has perhaps taught me more than anyone else in some very remarkable ways, and that is my son Michael. Michael is 17 years old now. He has very severe autism. He falls, in fact, on what we would call probably the lowest end of the spectrum. He is capable of speaking a few words. He has a vocabulary of perhaps 40 words. Most of them are words that only my wife and I can understand, or his caregivers, his teachers, and a few who are very familiar with him. His words consist mostly of vowels with the subset of consonants that he can pronounce. For example, the word that he uses for helicopter, which is one of his favorite things because it has too many syllables, is a-oo-oo. And at one point, when he learned the word, when he was learning his colors, he came up with the word not-ni-ni, an invented word for orange. And there was an orange helicopter that flew over our house, and he came running into the house very excited, saying, not-ni-ni, ah-oo-oo. And we as parents, fortunately, were able to understand this strange language. Among his most interesting words now is he seems to be fascinated with rototillers. And his word for rototiller is And one day I was out working on running the snowblower, clearing the snow from our driveway, and he had the innovative way of recognizing that a snowblower was very much like a tiller, coming up to me and saying, no, which meant snow tiller. Now, from Michael, I have learned to see the world in a very different way than I would have otherwise. He recognizes things that most of us would miss. For instance, he is very obsessed with fire alarms. I think largely because of the noise that they are capable of making. And so whenever we go to a building, he immediately finds where all of the fire alarms are, and he points those fire alarms out to us so that we know exactly where they are. And he has learned to spell the word fire, and oftentimes says F-I-R-E, and then will take every chance he can to write the word fire on things like smoke alarms, doorbells, anything that in any way represents or seems similar to him, to a fire alarm. He also notices things that others might not notice. One of the things that he really loves to see is airplanes, especially those that are flying very high because of the long vapor trails that they leave across the sky, which he refers to as rays. And then just to show us the importance of these airplanes and rays, he will take all of the blankets off of all of the beds in the house and across the entire house make a makeshift airplane with the blankets representing all of the rays that run the entire length of the house as a way of him letting us know what fascinates him and what he thinks about. Following, in a sense, in the tradition of his family, now 4 generations of artists, Michael loves to draw. And in fact, he has a tendency to acquire as many drawing utensils as he can. It's not unusual for him to come home from school with several dozen pens in his pockets. In fact, the people at his school must wonder where their pens have disappeared to. He'll come home with pens stuffed into every pocket, and when he runs out of pocket space, he stuffs them into his underpants, which makes it a bit difficult for him to walk, and has accumulated quite a collection of pencils and pens at home. Then he uses these then to draw any chance he can, and he loves to draw things that fascinate him, such as airplanes, animals, people's faces, and he, like he does with pens, he takes every opportunity he can to find a paper to draw upon, to the point that his drawings very quickly accumulate to the point that he has such a massive stack of drawings that it makes it difficult for him to carry those drawings with him. And oftentimes, because he takes papers that anywhere he can find them, I will sometimes have to go through the stacks of drawings to find important documents, such as tax forms, important legal documents, bills, those sorts of things. And in fact, on more than one occasion, I have sent important forms that had to be filled out that had airplanes and helicopters drawn on them. Even his IEP form once had animals drawn all over it when we submitted it to the school. He has a great sense of fascination with things that are tactile, especially sand, beans, rice, wheat, anything that is small that he can easily run through his hands gives him a great sense of comfort. And if he finds a sand pile, or oftentimes likes to carry around with him a bowl of beans or a bowl of wheat or rice, and then he runs that through his hands, watching it fall. And I discovered after watching him do that, I thought, I wonder what it is that intrigues him so greatly with this, with these items. And so I tried it myself and realized that it really is fascinating to watch the change in perspective as these items fall from your hand onto the ground, looking at them. From the time he was about 2 years old to the present, he has loved to carry out this activity, which is something, of course, that none of us would ever try on our own. But after watching him, I've discovered that this is truly a fascinating way to see something in the world that I might not have seen before. Well, living with autism not only has opened my mind to the inner workings of my son's mind, but it has also helped me to understand other people. As those of you who are parents of children with autism well understand, people's reactions are quite varied. In some cases, people, probably for reasons, for simple lack of understanding, tend to shun those with disabilities or with autism, largely because they just don't get it, I think. Or there may be fear associated with it, a fear of the unknown or a fear of what might happen, however unjustified that fear may be. And part of being a parent with autism is learning to understand the fears that others have and recognize those and be tolerant of them. However, also, people with disabilities can bring out the best in others. I remember one occasion when my son was playing in the yard. We had constructed a very large fence for him, and he somehow managed to climb over the fence and escape from the yard. And so I immediately was panicked, ran out looking for him, couldn't find him anywhere. One of my neighbors asked what I was doing. I told him that Michael was lost. Within minutes, it seemed like everyone within our neighborhood was suddenly out in the neighborhood looking for Michael. And it took about 15 minutes before someone found him about 2 blocks away playing in a neighbor's yard and safely returned him home. Those who, and even strangers who don't know my son, have, once they realize that he has a disability, will oftentimes come out and do very unusual things. I remember a young man who was driving by my son threw rocks at his car, a brand new red Corvette. And he, of course, was infuriated initially, but as soon as I said, my son is autistic, his complete demeanor changed as he suddenly was very kind and understanding of what had happened. So as all of us who have have children who are autistic have recognized, our children can bring out at times both the worst as well as the best in other people and help us to understand much about them and much about society. My being a parent of an autistic child also brings out periods of both fear as well as hope. Fear that my son, especially as he moves into adulthood, he's now 17, will turn 18 in June. As he moves into adulthood, a fear that he will not receive the services that he needs, or that he will not receive the medical care that he needs, or the services that he currently has might be withdrawn, or that as he attempts to learn some sort of a vocation or a way to be productive to society, that the opportunities for that may somehow evaporate or not be there. On the other hand, there is, I think also, this is a time of great hope. As a scientist who's involved in research, I am now seeing the progress that's being made. I just spent the entire day yesterday working with Dr. Valerie who you just heard a few moments ago, and seeing the incredible research that she and many others are doing that are beginning to uncover the genetic basis of autism, which hopefully in the future will give us treatments, preventions, and at a minimum, a much better understanding of what this complex disorder, in fact, actually set of disorders is. And I encourage you as we go through this symposium to pay attention to the wonderful and remarkable things that we have to learn as from the discoveries that scientists are making about this very complex disorder that afflicts not just children but adults of all ages, and is indeed a lifelong disorder. I'm hopeful that as we see developments in education, in politics, and in finance and other areas, that as our children move into adulthood, that we will find ways for them to care for themselves, to have the appropriate care that they need. As you heard in the last presentation, I have siblings are faced with the challenge of of wondering what to do with an autistic individual once that person moves into adulthood and the parents become old and eventually pass away. For me, that is one of the greatest concerns that I too have, is what will be my son's future and what can I do to help prepare him for it? Well, fortunately, conferences like this one bring people together who have the same concerns, the same hopes, the same fears, the same opportunities now to learn what is available and to learn where we can go. Well, again, this is a very short sketch, but this is a depiction of my son